Good afternoon and welcome to today's debate for Indiana's 9th Congressional District. My name is Casey Blundell and I will be your moderator this afternoon. Thank you to our candidates and our audience for being here. Today's discussion will focus on the issues that matter most to the residents of this district. We ask all participants to be respectful of the rules to ensure a fair, informative, and productive debate. This debate is presented by Progressive Indiana Network, an independent media collaborative supporting Indiana-focused progressive journalism, analysis, and commentary. The network provides a shared platform for writers, podcasters, and creators committed to covering state and local politics and with independence and accountability. You can learn more at progressiveindiana.net. This afternoon, we have three candidates who are looking to carry the Democratic banner in this race. Joining us today are Brad Meyer. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you.
Dr. Tim Peck.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much.
Welcome, Dr. Peck. And Kyle Rorick.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you each for taking the time to join us today. An invitation was extended to Mr. Jim Graham, but he was unable to attend, citing a scheduling conflict. So today, this afternoon, our debate format will be as follows. Each candidate will have the opportunity to provide an opening statement to introduce themselves and their platform. Following opening statements, I will ask a series of questions. Each candidate will have equal time to respond. There may be opportunities for brief rebuttals, but that will be at my discretion. Later, we'll move on to a speed round where I'm going to put a spotlight on areas of genuine disagreement within the big blue tent. Because Democrats don't always agree and primary voters deserve to know what kind of Democrat they're getting, we will conclude then with closing statements from each candidate. Candidates, are you ready?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So I have done a random pick, and we will have, looks like, Dr. Peck, you will be up first for your opening statement. Then we will have Mr. Meyer, followed by Mr. Rourke. Okay. So, Dr. Peck, you have the stage.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you to the Progressive Indiana Network. Thank you to everyone watching tonight. I'm Dr. Tim Peck. I'm an emergency medicine doctor who treats my neighbors here in Southern Indiana. I'm also an advocate in DC, working in Congress, testifying before Congress, and working to co-lead a bipartisan coalition to make telemedicine a reality just in time for the pandemic. It costs too much to work in this country right now. There's not only the gas that you put in your car, which is in the news right now, but the credit card that you put that gas on, the housing that you need to be able to get ready for work, the childcare you need to even be able to go to work, the education bills you need to be able to even have gotten that job, and the groceries you need to feed yourself with. And of course, the healthcare insurance that comes out of your paycheck. And by the time all of that is done, you have less money than when you started. And that's what I'm hearing at the doors. We've knocked 10,000 doors as a campaign. And this isn't a system. This is abandonment by our government and those who put money in the pockets of our politicians. And that specifically is the corporate PACs. I, for one, have sworn off corporate PAC money, as I believe that is the reason we are in the situation that we are in today. And it's not only the cost of living, it's also our rights are being infringed on. Our reproductive rights, our environmental rights, our rights for labor, our First Amendment rights, even our right to live, as we've seen on the streets of Minneapolis. And so the bold vision of being able to reverse all of this through expertise, through a bipartisan approach, and fighting for our progressive values is what I'm excited to talk about today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peck. Mr. Meyer, you are up next.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Brad Meyer. I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives. We're a great nation, but we're facing real problems. Others are going to try to tell you the problems are too big to solve, that we need to dream small. They're making the bed in a burning house, focused on just a couple of issues in the middle of a big crisis. This election is about more than just one or two issues. It's about the direction of this country. We have to fight for our rights, our values, and our priorities so that retirees have the security they need. Workers can actually get ahead, and young adults can build a foundation for their future. Now, affordability is at the center of all of this, and it shouldn't be this hard just to get by in this country. That's why I'm fighting for a $20 an hour minimum wage. The first $20,000 earned is tax-free, and Medicare for all, because no one should have to go broke just trying to stay alive. I spent 25 years in manufacturing leadership in Indiana, managing teams up to 100 people across 5 states. But as a leader, I first had to set a direction, because those steps only matter if you're moving toward a goal. Some say we need to be more moderate, but year after year, we trim our message, we soften our priorities, and we lose. I didn't enter this race to continue the decline these timid politics have given us. I'm here to fight for a fair shot at a decent life, and I'm asking for your vote to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Mr. Rourke?
Sure. Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, my name is Kyle Rourke, and I'm running Indiana's 9th Congressional District because I'm deeply concerned about this country and the economic opportunities. I'm an electrical engineer, licensed electrical engineer, teacher, father, got married into this state in 1995, have a Purdue engineering degree. I'm also ex-blue collar. I was a UAW assembly line worker for 8+ years, and I was in the Navy. I was a Navy officer for 11 years. So I'm going to take those experiences to help provide real world solutions to our problems of the day in the 9th Congressional District. For example, wages, cost of living, affordability, healthcare cost. They're increasingly out of touch, right? Way too high for everybody. Folks are just suffering, right? 1, 2 jobs, 3 jobs just to pay their rent, pay their bills, pay their healthcare costs. And so I'm going to provide real world solutions to those real world problems. And we need to do it in a hurry. I'm advocating for I'd like to get $18 an hour minimum wage, but I'm a realist. I think 15 is the appropriate mark in this conservative district. And I also believe in extending ACA subsidies. I think we can get that done quickly in January. That's very pragmatic. And when our party takes control of the House and potentially the Senate, I think we can get that done quickly. And then I'm also for educational access, skilled trades training, medical tech jobs, where folks want to go into those fields and they need educational grant money to be able to get access to those programs at a low cost. So those are kind of my platform. Also, I'm looking for government oversight without question. I am pro-democracy. I believe in the Constitution, and I want democracy to continue for the next generation. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you all for those opening statements. We will now be moving to question portion. I will ask a question, and then at random, we will kind of reorder who I call on to answer these questions. So we're going to start with, there's going to be 10 questions. So we're going to step into that now. So Mr. Rourke, you're going to be up first. And the question is also, the question will be posted on the screen. If you need to read it, please do not hesitate to ask me to repeat the question. So we'll start with a softball. For each of you, what is your top priority for residents of Indiana's 9th Congressional District? And how do you plan to achieve that? Mr. Rourke, you're going to be up first.
My top priority, I really have three, but I'm a pragmatist, so I really want to focus in on what we can do on day one, week one, month one, right? ACA subsidies. I would vote to have those subsidies reinstated. I think that's something we can do, as I mentioned in my opening. With control of Congress, House, and Senate, I think we can get a minimum wage bill through. Hopefully, we have enough votes to do that. That'd be another big priority. The big, beautiful disaster of a bill. I'm very upset about this bill, taking a lot of money from SNAP and Medicaid. Obviously, I'd like to repeal and replace that. Those are my kind of top three. And then also democracy, right? We need to continue to advocate for pro-democracy platforms, but also in terms of ethics, we need to really focus in on ethics reform. No Stock Trade Act. There's actually a bill on the floor. We need to advocate to make sure that becomes a reality. We can't have, we can't have folks in Congress, whether they're in the House of Representatives or Senate, trading on insider information, because that's essentially what they're doing. And they're doing it legally, unfortunately. So I would continue to advocate for that bill. And then we also need to look at ethics reform with the Supreme Court as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rourke. Mr. Meyer, you are up next on the question. Would you like for me to repeat the question? Oh. Mr. Meyer, we can't hear you.
Sorry. My first priority is to stabilize the Affordable Care Act and also the rural healthcare system, which is going to really suffer under the big bad bill, and we need to repeal those as quickly as possible. Second thing that we need to do is enforce the Impoundment Act, which I think was done in 1974, that says that once money is allocated by Congress, that it actually has to be spent, where Trump has just ignored that and has undercut things like SNAP benefits and aid to the poor and healthcare and the Justice Department and the Department of Education and right, they're effectively gutting the government and overriding the will of the Congress and the people, and Congress has not enforced what they need to. They also need to, we will need to stand up and actually have hearings and bring charges, frankly, for what Trump did on the Iranian war is an impeachable offense. And I think that because we cannot trust him to use the power that he has been given, I think he needs to be removed from office. After that, since I still have some time, it's red. I'll let it go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Dr. Peck, you're up next.
Thank you. I'm going to focus on what people are telling me. And so we've spoken to tens of thousands of voters at this point, and we track that data, but also have those personal stories being told to us. And again, it's this idea that just really is articulated well by people who are struggling, that it costs more to work than it does to not work. And then when you go to work, you're losing money. And again, that includes the gas that you have. If we're still in this war in Iran, obviously we need to take back our war powers and stop abdicating our congressional influence. Housing, about making sure that first-time homeowners can afford the down payments through low-cost loans, and changing the tax code to make it so that they are competing with these large PE companies. Childcare, education, including universal pre-K, is something that is a smart investment that has bipartisan support because it actually makes the country money when kids start graduating with higher rates and more collegiate and trade school completion. Cost of groceries means getting some of these companies in and telling us why they're price gouging the education system and how much it costs. So making sure that we can make our college loans a much lower interest rate than what it is today. And finally, of course, our healthcare, reversing that ACA repealment, reversing the big beautiful bill, and getting down the middlemen costs that exist today.
Thank you all for your answers. Next question, Mr. Meyer, you're going to be up first. How would you address, all of you spoke about it in your opening statements, how would you address rising costs of living, including housing, groceries, healthcare for families, all within this district? Mr. Meyer, you're up first.
Thank you. Well, first of all, we need to start with a $20 an hour minimum wage, raise the non-exempt salary threshold to $100,000 so that people can get more overtime. First $20,000 tax-free. These are things that'll put more money in people's pockets, which help. And the other thing is that we need to help insulate them from risk, which is part of why I'm advocating for Medicare for all. Most developed nations have it, and most of our bankruptcies involve medical debt, so that it's going to be important to address medical debt issues. We also need to address housing. And one of the things that we need to do with housing is we need to stop companies from speculating in housing. Single-family homes is a single-family investment. It shouldn't be a corporate investment, so we should stop the speculation. We need to build a lot more houses, so we need to have policies that will support building additional houses so that prices can stabilize. We need to help people get into their first home, because once a lot of people are paying enough in rent that they could afford the payment for a house, but they can't cover the down payment. So we need to help with that. And there's reasons that they're struggling more. We need to stabilize Social Security, and my time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Dr. Peck, you're next.
There's a lot of things that we all can do here. Let's get to the fundamental reason that the cost of living is so high. Is because businesses are in charge of our government right now. And those that are in power are working for those business interests much more than they're working for the interest of people. And because of that, it's done through, corporate PAC money going into people's pockets, making decisions. Our current Congresswoman is mostly responsible for our Duke Energy prices going up right now for when she was in state senate, and still continuing to take that money and protect those fossil fuel companies. And we need to stop that. And I, for one, have sworn off corporate PAC money. What we really need to look at is the fairness between what corporations can do with their money and taxes, and versus what people can do. And what I mean by that is across the board. So credit card rates are extremely high for people to be able to borrow money from those banks, whereas banks will give corporations a tiny, tiny interest rate. We need to make that fair. We just talked about housing. And when PE companies buy and sell housing, they get taxed at a lower rate than when you buy or sell housing. We need to talk about how small businesses depend on the ACA, and that the money against premiums for the ACA is taxed at a higher rate than the money that a large corporation uses to buy health insurance for their employees. This is all just needs to be leveled off in the tax code.
Thank you. Mr. Rourke, you're next.
Yeah, so let's just start with housing. So essentially, we have a supply issue, right? I read an article some time ago, 2009, after the 2008 stock market crash. We had an abundance of housing at that time, but ever since then, a lot of developers have kind of stopped building as many homes every year, and that's a real problem. It's a supply issue. Businesses have something to do with that as well, but it's mainly a supply issue. We have to start to look at tax incentives for development. We have to look at low interest loans for first time home buyers potentially. And we also need to look at regulatory framework for developers to get in there and start building homes again. And if there's any type of monopolistic predatory practices where developers are actually buying property and using that to jack up prices for consumers, we need to look at that and put controls in place, or put caps in place, cost caps in place, so developers can't profit off of folks' high price homes, right? So we need to look at that. Grocery prices, obviously, fertilizer costs, right? Fertilizer costs have been up because of the war. War's got to stop. They should come back down. And those are some things we really need to look at in terms of dealing with that issue quickly. And then one other thing, ACA subsidies. On average, ACA subsidies, when they expired, the ACA cost went up by, on average, 25%. Once we reinstitute those, people will save on average 25% on their healthcare cost on a monthly average.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So next we're going to move on to a different topic, and we're going to discuss public safety and criminal justice reform. This is kind of a multi-part question. What is your stance on public safety and the criminal justice reform? And what specific policies would you support in working towards a criminal justice reform, but also ensuring safety for all? Dr. Peck, you're going to be up first.
I was on mute. I am a strong supporter of our police force making sure that they get the funds that they need to be able to protect us all. I'm also a strong supporter of making sure that we take care of the everyday needs of citizens who are in a dangerous society. Last night, I was at work. I worked an overnight. One of the technicians at my work picked up the phone, and it was her daughter who was screaming because she was in Salem Eastern High School as there was someone outside of that high school, a middle schooler, while they were inside the high school at a dance waving a gun, and there were screams. And so that's a reality of what's happening today in our district, literally right now. How did that child get a gun? What was the mental health needs of that child? And we need to address those two things at the same time. I think the dichotomy of gun control versus no gun control is just creates fighting. I think we need to look at making sure that we have background checks, that we have safe storage, especially in this case, red flag laws, mental health support, school-based conflict resolution. But at the same time, so that we're looking at both the root causes as well as the as limiting guns from people who should not be using them.
Thank you, Dr. Peck. Mr. Meyer, you're up next.
So there's two pieces. There is reactive when you talk about crime policy, and that is policing and the courts, and we need that, right? But there's also proactive, and you have to look at what some of the root causes are of poverty and why we have so much violence and crime in the United States. So poverty, This is one of the reasons that I'm advocating for policies that will help people make more of their own money, and that they have a fair shot at a decent life. If they don't trust that the system and that there isn't any hope, then it leads to crime. We do a terrible job with mental health and addiction policy. And then we also have a real problem with recidivism. A very large percentage of people, 75% of people that are in the criminal justice system, that are in prison, are going to get out. And I think about half of those will end up reoffending, and about a third total will end up back in prison. So we're not handling recidivism issues. We're not rehabilitating people, and we're not addressing these root causes the way we need to. On the other side of it, we also need to really work closely on community trust. Cameras help both sides, police and the citizens. And the federal government has abandoned the issues that they need to help with this trust. They pulled back from consent decrees. They've reduced or canceled investigations. And they had a shift in policy toward local control, which is good, but has been shown that there needs to be some federal oversight.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Mr. Rourke, you're up.
Well, in terms of policing and recidivism, I mean, at the end of the day, we need to really focus on providing economic opportunity and jobs. It's a clear link between unemployment rate and recidivism. It's that simple. When jobs are good paying jobs are less plentiful, crime goes up and it's impacted. So let's start with policing. So we need to have the best and brightest out there policing. We have to look at the recruiting standards. We also need to look at training relative to procedures, tactics, techniques, and procedures, body cameras, and we need to look at providing federal grants and funding for those police departments that are struggling with keeping police officers, training them well, and handling prisoners appropriately, and that don't violate their constitutional rights. Second thing is we also need to look at alternatives to incarceration. Sorry, cash bond, that doing away with cash bond for nonviolent offenders. We also need to look at justice reforms, probation, parole, and in-house arrest. So those are some alternatives to incarceration and prison reforms as well. We also need to look at how much time do folks actually stay in jail, and what kind of training do they get to, once released, they can go out and get a good job and take care of themselves, right? I think we need to continue to provide grants for folks to deal with those low recidivism rates and to help prepare them for society once they get out of prison.
Thank you all for your answers. Your guys' district includes several rural and suburban areas within your district. You also are very close to several metropolitan areas. How do you plan to support small businesses and economic growth within your suburban and rural parts of your district? Dr. Meyer, it looks like you got chosen to go next or go first again on this question. Sorry, I didn't mean to say Dr. Meyer. I meant to say Dr. Peck. I apologize, Mr. Meyer.
That's okay.
Got it. So just to repeat the question, if you will, how do you plan to support small businesses in suburban rural areas? Is that the gist?
Yes, sir. How do you plan to support small businesses and economic growth in the suburban and rural areas?
Great. Well, small businesses are by far, the life of a rural community, and I'll speak to that as a rural, someone who lives in a rural district, who lives on a farm right outside there. Our small businesses need to be able to compete with the larger companies. That includes just infrastructure. And infrastructure in these communities has been hollowed out. And so for those who don't live here, knowing that we need to build even the basic infrastructure and start there and catch up to the rest of the country is important. Our rural broadband, I'm speaking to you on it right now. I only got fiber only 2 or 3 months ago at this point, right? So the whole of this town that I live in doesn't even have it yet. Our local hospital has closed. We need to make sure people have insurance, so when they're walking through those hospitals, they can stay open. Our connection to the urban areas through transportation has decreased. So when talking about having the ability for small businesses to support themselves, they need to have the people even live in these rural areas, even have the schools that they need to be able to stay there and not have to migrate out somewhere else. And so priority number one is supporting the infrastructure of our rural communities.
Thank you, Dr. Peck. Mr. Rourke, you're up next.
Yeah, so as ex blue collar, I can speak to working on construction crews. Before I got a job with Chrysler on the assembly line, I used to build houses, do concrete, do flooring. And those small businesses depend on tax relief, tax policy that helps them write off cost. For example, a saw, material that's required for equipment, repairs on a work truck. All these different things are necessary tax policies that help small businesses write off those expenses to maintain that business and to keep it running. We need to continue to support that activity, because in the 9th Congressional District, we have so many small businesses that depend on that tax code to keep their business running and to keep them in the black, keep them making money and doing the things they need to do in terms of whether working on houses, doing roof work, concrete work, plumbers, pipe fitters, millwrights, and the like. They need that tax policy. So I would continue to support that. In addition to that, I would definitely use the local state politicians, mayors of those specific counties to kind of look at, hey, what do we need to do from an economic development standpoint in these areas, and provide tax incentives or tax policy to help encourage economic development, whether it's new roads, new bridges, new fiber optics, like Tim was mentioning, to help encourage economic activity. We need to continue to support those tax policies for those activities for small business.
Thank you, Mr. Rourke. Mr. Meyer, you're up.
So there are 4 things that we can do. Number one, reduce barriers to small businesses starting, so we can limit non-compete agreements and add Medicare for all. A lot of people are stuck in jobs because their health care is tied to their job and they have non-competes that they can't strike out on their own. We need to strengthen the local economy with progressive policies that help families earn more. That's why I'm advocating for a stronger minimum wage and tax changes and overtime policies. And then we need to expand capital for businesses once they get started. The Small Business Administration, I think, has been gutted by about 40%. And small businesses are the backbone of our economy, especially in rural Indiana. And we need to be able to provide them the support they need. And then we need to invest in the fundamentals, broadband, infrastructure, and workforce development. And the infrastructure and the workforce development, there are community-based subject matter experts that are working on community development. And as a congressman, I need to be able to work with them to ensure that the policies are targeted and to help them get the funding they need. Turns out Kentucky does a dramatically better job. I think Kentucky gets twice as much federal money as we do in Indiana. And I think part of the job of the congressman is to help bring federal money back in to help strengthen our economy.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. As many of you know, Indiana faces several challenges when it comes to healthcare, access to affordable healthcare. Currently, Indiana ranks the third worst for maternal mortality in the country. We also ranked 49th recently in quality of life. We are 43rd for access to mental health, and we're 45th for public healthcare funding. In addition to that, we are the 7th highest state for the most expensive hospital cost. In addition, your district, District 9, has seen several challenges, including a public health crisis with a rise in Hep C, HIV, and the like. There was a needle exchange that was proposed and passed by Mike Pence. And that needle exchange expired, I believe, last year, but was begrudgingly bought back by the current governor. With that being said, and the challenges that your district specifically faces with the closure of Planned Parenthood and other community healthcare providers, what steps would you take to improve access to affordable healthcare for Indiana and Hoosiers? Mr. Meyer, you're up first.
In the short run, we need to get the ACA subsidies back so people can actually afford coverage. Soon after that, we need to expand telehealth and preventative care so rural patients can get care without traveling long distances. We need to stabilize rural providers by increasing their reimbursement rate for low volume facilities. And we need to support EMS. The mobile care units are needed to extend the reach to underserved areas. There's a lot of things we need to do to improve health in Southern Indiana. And one of the things you mentioned it, I didn't have it on my list, but one thing that's important to me is I'm a strong advocate and believer in Planned Parenthood. When my wife and I were first married, we were poor as church mice, and we used their services to help plan our family. And they do a lot of good work, and I don't think that we really talk about that enough. In the long run, any system built on our current cost structure is not going to be, be sustainable. This for-profit system doesn't profit us, and we die earlier and we go bankrupt, unlike other countries. That's why I'm advocating for Medicare for all. We have to stop tinkering around the edges, and we have to fix the real problems.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Mr. Rourke, you're up next.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, ACA subsidies, reinstate that. I think that's a good short-term fix. We also need to look at updating ACA to provide, tax incentives for preventive care, preventive activities. Okay, so dental check, cardiology check, echocardiogram, a yearly physical, right? Those activities, and even exercise, and hey, maybe I run 2 times a week. A demonstrated track record of preventative, positive, healthy habits that could be rewarded at the end of the year. There's no reason why we can't update our ACA language to include a preventative care package to provide incentives for folks to lower their healthcare costs. If you look at Japan, they have a Medicare type for all or universal healthcare policy. One of the biggest components of the Japanese plan is preventive care. They get their medical exams once a year. They get a dental exam. They go through all the different checks because they've shown over time the folks who do the preventive work save costs downstream. And then also repeal the one big disaster of a bill. With that going away and all those cuts in Medicaid, SNAP benefits, that's putting enormous pressure on the hospitals here in the 9th Congressional District.
Thank you. Dr. Peck. You're up.
Thank you. Healthcare is a human right. Everybody deserves healthcare, and I am living the nightmare of our current system of abandonment currently. I am speaking to you on a weekend, on a Saturday, from my home in New Washington. If I call 911 right now, there is no, the first line of defense is the local fire department, which does not operate their EMS on the weekend. And so I am need to go to the second line of defense, where they will try to get an ambulance that is stationed very far away, likely busy, maybe bringing someone and transporting them into even Kentucky. And so therefore, often we are told no one's coming. That is because we don't have a local hospital. That is because that local hospital would have an ambulance with it to support the business of getting people to that hospital. Without coverage of our people in terms of insurance, we will not be able to pay for those local hospitals. They will continue to shut down, and they will lose services such as the OB desert that exists throughout our entire district. In order to get there so that everybody can have the insurance they need, we need to decrease costs. That includes decreasing the middlemen like prior authorization and pharmacy benefit managers and making those illegal. That includes making sure that every dollar that comes from our Medicare taxes goes directly to patient care and not to executive bonuses, shareholder payouts, or billion-dollar pharma campaigns. We need to reprioritize how we spend our public money. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peck. And just as a friendly reminder, if you are not speaking, please make sure your mic is on mute to prevent any additional noises or echoing. Moving on to the next topic, we're going to talk about education. And currently in Indiana, we rank 37th in the United States for K through 12 funding. Also in the Hoosier state, only 37% of Hoosier students are reading at grade level. Indiana also ranks 39th for teacher pay. How should the federal government support education, and what changes would you advocate for schools within your district? Mr. Rourke, you're up first.
Okay, so first step is we need to look at the infrastructure of how schools operate, right? So you have some of these classrooms. My wife's a teacher that don't have teacher assistants. You don't have after school care in some of these schools. And when I say after school care, I'm talking about, for example, a student is having difficulty with math or science or writing class or music. A lot of these programs don't exist. So we need to increase funding for the after school programs and the teacher assistants. All right. One good thing about, No Child Left Behind is it indicated how many students are not graduating. But one thing we need to focus in on is STEM. Okay. STEM. I'm an electrical engineer by trade, and I was a teacher at Ivy Tech. We need to focus in on paying teachers more money. It's that simple. If you're not paying them well, you're not going to keep the best and brightest. And then let's get into science, technology, engineering, math. Those folks who are making well over $100,000 a year, they're not going to go teach in a public high school unless they're compensated accordingly. We need to really focus in on providing funding for those schools and those districts so they can get those STEM professionals to come in and teach, and they can do well in their math. Because I saw when I was a Navy officer recruiter, a lot of our folks used to come in and try to join the military, and they couldn't get past the ASVAB because of their math skills. Their math skills was really sinking a lot of the students, and we need to really focus in on STEM for our baby boomer shortage in terms of, skill training and then future tech jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rourke. Dr. Peck, you're up next.
We do need to pay our teachers more, but Mike Braun's not going to get that done. So the states aren't going to be doing that work. So it does in some way fall on the federal government and on Congress to figure that out. And so, firstly, of course, we need to make sure the appropriations that we voted for the Department of Education are reinstated and the Department of Education is made strong. Secondly, the federal government has a lot of leverage over some local issues, such as schools, when a workforce is involved. And let me explain that. So, any money that goes to schooling from the federal government can be leveraged to say, we'll give you this money if you pay your teachers a living wage. If you make sure your teachers are given the worker protections that they deserve, that some states do willingly and others like ours do not. That goes for a lot of workers' rights, which I hope to talk about later. I think universal pre-K is very smart and very bipartisan. There is literally a bill that's been written by Republicans to be able to put universal pre-K in. It requires some changing. The bill makes some changing of the mechanism of which we fund things in order to make it clear that universal pre-K has a return on investment. It's just down the road. And so we need to invest in that to get our kids, the education they need early so they can graduate successfully.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer, you're up next.
The Department of Education is the federal way that the federal government engages with education, which is constitutionally primarily a state responsibility. And we received, I think, about $3 billion from Title I, I think Part A funding, mostly to help poor areas and help struggling schools. And we need to restore that, and we need to protect the Department of Education so that the federal government can help where it's needed. There's also, and I agree that universal pre-K is an important thing, that I think there needs to be a national child care program as well. And we need to look at that. And Bernie Sanders and others have been looking at those types of things. In addition, there's also over a dozen federal programs that support growth and development and education for adults and retraining, which is also a really lifelong learning is an important part of what needs to be done. And your representative needs to partner in coordinating with these programs with local community needs to help with the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act and the Perkins Career Technical Education and the Job Corps and registered apprenticeship programs and Pell Grants and GI Bill and all of these things. There's so many programs that we really need to engage with, but we also need to apply pressure back to our state leaders because they have primary responsibility and they're failing us.
Thank you to the three of you. I'm going off script for a slight second because based on the three of your answers, I have a follow-up question that I feel like your voters would be interested in knowing. The current administration is working on a plan, if you will, to completely get rid of, right, the Department of Education. I'm going to ask each of you what your thoughts are on keeping the Department of Education and the federal government's role in that. And if so, the question is, should we keep the Department of Ed at the federal level, or should we toss it back to the states as the current administration is looking to do? So I'm going to go with, we're going to keep the same question. So Mr. Rourke, you're going to be up first on that one.
So I just want a quick little rebuttal against what Tim was saying. I absolutely disagree. There is tremendous power of dollars coming into the great state of Indiana, federal dollars for public education. So the fact that Mr. Braun wouldn't listen, yes, he would, because when you start holding back federal dollars for public schools, they will listen. The reason they don't listen now is because it's all Republican in the state, with exception of Indy and then the other Merv's congressional district as well. But I just wanted to say we have tremendous power as congressional rep to make those changes. But I definitely agree that we need to keep the Department of Education. The reason why is because they actually look at, from a holistic perspective, who's graduating, what are the standards, are folks graduating with the right credentialing? Credentialing is important, right? Reading, writing, mathematics, history, all the after-school programs, sports. They're in charge of managing all those curriculums and making sure the right credentialing is done. I don't have faith. I mean, potentially, it could be left to a state's issue, but I truly feel the Department of Education is a key critical body in making sure they're managing, and our kids are getting the best educational process as possible in Indiana.
Thank you. Dr. Peck. Okay, I will give you, you're up next actually in the answer sequence. So you can start with your rebuttal and then move into the answer to the question.
That's fine. I can combine the two. I think like what Kyle was saying was repeating a lot of what I was saying, and perhaps my answer wasn't clear before. My point is that if we reinstate more of the Department of Education, we reinstate the federal funding that goes to states, which allows us to have the power to leverage to make sure that states do the right thing and pay their teachers better. Not only that, we can use that leverage to say that money has to go to public education. Therefore, do not take this money and use it in a voucher system that goes into private education, of which Indiana has started to do and has plans to do even more. And so, yes, I think that we need a powerful, well-funded, centralized education department within the federal government to enable our states to do what they are supposed to be doing with their money, which is fund actual public education for all of us.
Thank you, Dr. Peck. Mr. Meyer, you're.
So on education, I regularly remind people that the primary responsibility for education is constitutionally with the state, but there are areas in which the federal government can and does have a strong role, and those are important roles. One of the roles is to evaluate how schools are doing to make sure that they're doing well, so that if, for example, the state wants to go to privatizing schools and it's not working out, that they have an independent assessor that's not part of the plan that tells you whether your children and your school systems are doing well or not. And the reason they want to gut the Department of Education is to prevent parents from knowing what's really happening with their schools and whether it's working or not, and to make it so that the people at the state level who's controlling education are the only people that can give them answers of whether the system is working or not. This is trying to blind the people in Indiana. The second thing is that this is a shell game. Trump has already said that he wants to increase the military budget by 40 to 50% and stop funding all other things, and it's going to go back to the state. So what they're going to do is they're going to break this into pieces. They're going to slide it into different places, and then that $3 billion that we've gotten historically is just going to evaporate. And then the state is going to let these things suffer. And it's going to really hurt our education system.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. And thank you guys for sticking with me on that, on the off-script question. So moving on to a different topic, we're going to discuss infrastructure spending, so roads, broadband access, and public transportation. I still can't figure out if it is truly accurate or not. we know it's not accurate, but a publication recently said that Indiana had one of the best roads in the country. I'm not sure which roads in Indiana they drove, but it wasn't necessarily the ones I drive on. So for this question, what is your position on infrastructure spending, including roads, broadband access, and public transportation for Hoosiers within your district? Dr. Peck, you're up first on this question.
I think this is a great example of the point I was making before, that the federal government has leverage over the money that they give to say, I'm only going to give you this money if you use it responsibly. And so what I mean by that is that that money should be given to the states if they also put it in the pockets of the people who are actually doing the work for us. Right now, there's nothing to say how workers should be treated. So as I said, broadband has just been laid in fiber in our farming community here, and they still have more to do. It's all unmarked bands that are subcontractors that are using very questionable labor at time. And as I talked to the labor unions at the Buildings and Trades in New Albany just a few days ago, they were saying it might be actually a good thing because they keep breaking things that we have to go fix, and we get that we get those money, but that extra money is being spent twice now because of it. Workers, the leverage we have to make sure workers get what they need in infrastructure is enormous. The bipartisan infrastructure bill that did go through didn't really have those protections in it. There is something called the PRO Act that can be introduced once Democrats get back the Congress, which does exactly what I'm saying. It says, we'll give you infrastructure money if workers have protected rights, if workers are getting a good wage, and we need to introduce it. It has bipartisan support, just won't go because Johnson won't put it on the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Peck. Mr. Rourke, you're up next.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think roads and bridges and infrastructure all comes back to the local communities, right? Whether it's the mayor of New Albany and the county council or Jeffersonville, Madison, Bloomington, right? They need to be the clearinghouse of what the issues are because they're local, right? So they're going to be able to tell you real quickly which roads need repair, which bridges need repair, which bridges are outdated. Where do we need fiber optics cabling, right, for new businesses that potentially want to come in? Because that economic development is driving a lot of those initiatives. So my stance is obviously we want to provide federal funding. We want to have federal funding in the funding bills to provide roads, bridges, fiber optics, any type of funding for school changes, anything like that helps with economic development and or the community. Because the last thing we need is our citizens, our folks in the 9th, driving down the road and having a lot of car problems, right? Potholes. We've all been over potholes, and they can tend to do a lot of damage on a vehicle, right? So we don't need that happening. But it's a balance between, consistent maintenance cost on a yearly basis of roads and bridges, as well as new initiatives for economic development. And obviously, I would support anything that provides improvement to the 9th Congressional District, of course.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer?
Question. There are three main things that really help in economic development. That's education, which we've discussed, and actually healthcare is an important consideration. And then infrastructure is also important. The purpose of the federal government is to help with the big, hard, expensive, long-term things that local communities can't do themselves or by themselves. And unfortunately, it's not a sexy thing that people get all excited about and they can brag about. So it's kind of left to suffer. We have over 1,000 bridges in Indiana that are deficient. We have another 1,000 bridges that are in some state of disrepair. And even if you set aside data centers, Our electric grid is not keeping up with what our needs are. The system is aging and it's not keeping up with growth. Water treatment plants are needing repair, which nobody ever talks about water treatment. But when your sewer system doesn't work, you definitely are suffering. I mean, there's a lot of things that we need to work on. And broadband is also important. The federal government has a role working with local, regional, and state officials to help figure out how federal money can and should be applied to make things better. This is a fundamental role of government to help literally keep the lights on.
Thank you. We're going to pivot once again on a different topic. And we're going to discuss how each of you would approach the issues related to border security and immigration policy. I am going to go, Mr. Rourke, you are up first.
So, some of my not my colleagues on this call, but I've just heard a lot of chatter about defunding ICE. That's not my position. I don't think that's a good idea. ICE was created right after 9/11, and they serve a critical infrastructure. Now, are they broken? Absolutely. As we all know, Noam got fired, and rightfully. We need to ensure that they're doing their job like they're supposed to be doing. Body cameras, techniques, and procedures. They're following the right recruiting tools and recruiting the right folks who don't have issues of immorality in their background or anything like that. Not saying they are, but they need to really have a laser beam on recruiting, making sure they're getting the best and brightest, and then holding folks accountable when they're out of line, right? From a nice perspective, they're broken. We need to fix it. A lot of things we need to do to change that. From a broader border security perspective, obviously I support border security. We can't just let folks come across the border because that's how bad things happen. We had 9/11 and we can't do that. We have to have a strict border security. And then another thing I'd like to add, we need to reinstitute E-Verify. E-Verify, there's too many loopholes in that process. And it really comes back to dollars. Folks who come across the border, either from the northern or southern edge of the country, they come here for money. Money, money, money. We need to reinstitute the E-Verify system so we hold employers accountable for hiring folks who are here illegally.
Thank you, Mr. Rourke.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Peck, you are up next on this question.
Thank you. Congress has abdicated its powers in a shameful way in this last year and a half now. One of the ways it did that is by not holding Donald Trump accountable to some of the illegal foundations of his border policies that he claimed through executive actions and didn't push back on it. And one of those is to say that there was an invasion of immigrants into this country. That was just found by a federal judge to be not a valid legal reason to do a lot of the things he was doing, including stopping the ability of people to have asylum cases be heard. I do believe in borders that are strong. And the way we get those strong is by putting more police, more judges, more drug machines on the border so that we can police that appropriately, as well as actually go through the asylum process with those who are trying to claim it in a much quicker way. Right now, what happened, or before what happened during the Biden administration, is we did these asylums. There's so many people, and we said, okay, go live in the country for a while because we don't have the resources to actually hear your case right away. Let's hear them right away and be able to make sure that we have a just country as we bring people into the country.
Thank you, Dr. Peck. Mr. Meyer?
So we need to undo the changes that and the plus ups that ICE was put in and roll back the policies. But then if we win and if we do that, that only takes us back to 2024, and 2024 was not really a good year for immigration policy either. We've been stuck for 40 years in a stalemate between Democrats and Republicans on this issue. I have strong feelings on this. One of the first things that I did was I led an anti-ICE protest at Camp Atterbury back in August when they were talking about doing it at Camp Atterbury, because it doesn't match our values, and frankly, it doesn't match our interests. What I'm advocating for, and it's on my website, bradmeyer.org, is a change in the framing for the discussion about immigration. Instead of talking about it from a compassion or a legalistic point of view, we need to start by talking about it from an economic point of view. It is in the best interest for existing American citizens to foster additional immigration. We need more workers. The fact is that the labor participation rate in the United States has been going down for 40 years. Our unemployment rate shows that we can absorb and needed to absorb additional workers. And if we want to have a strong economy, we're going to have to bring workers in. And we got to change those policies to allow them to do that in a way that's legal, controlled, and matches our values and treats the people with dignity when they come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. We're going to discuss, we're going to kind of pivot back to economic growth here in Indiana. And we're going to talk about one of the big things that is, to put it in Mr. Meyer's words, sexy right now are data centers. Although I don't know how sexy data centers truly are, because they do take several, they do cause several environmental concerns for local communities. As a for Indiana's 9th District, as their congressman, what actions would you take to address environmental concerns while still balancing economic growth in Indiana's 9th District? Mr. Meyer, you are up first on this one.
I'm against the irresponsible implementation of data centers. And right now, we don't have a standard for what responsible looks like, and that's part of what the problem is. So in order to have data centers go forward, we need three things. We need to be able to articulate from both an environmental and an economic position what responsible data centers look like, and there's reasons that companies would not want to be responsible. Then in the permitting, they're going to have to, in a transparent way, say how they're going to do it responsibly, which means they can't have NDAs and gag orders that prevent the communities from knowing what's going on. I think that that is illegal or needs to be made illegal. And then there needs to be oversight to ensure that they're actually following through with what good looks like, right? So the EPA needs to be engaged. They need to make sure that the electrical grid can handle the additional energy, and then local communities need to have more power and more say in what's happening and not be blinded by these gag orders. This is overall a state issue, but there are federal handles that we can pull to ensure that they are not doing things that hurt our environment and unnecessarily or unsustainably stress our energy grid.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Dr. Peck, you're next.
The current system that we have of data centers is to trust the social media companies, trust Facebook, trust Google, trust Amazon to do the right thing. That is we've seen how that works out. They are not good neighbors. They haven't been good neighbors. And the data centers are no different. They're coming in without transparency, making private deals with local governments and state governments before communities get to weigh in on what they think about those data centers in their backyards and how those data centers get implemented. Because of that, it's contrasts what you see in some other companies that come in that aren't for the best thing for our communities all the time, such as perhaps casinos. Whereas the casinos come in, there's all this conversation and the community gets tons of money. And all of a sudden you have new government buildings and new libraries and new schools and new roads being paved and a YMCA that is, beautiful all of a sudden. We're not getting that leverage on these companies to come in. And so what happens is they abuse their environmental privilege by saying, we're going to take a whole bunch of your water without having any thoughts about how it will hurt your community. And we're going to drive up your electricity prices. And we're not going to pay for the privilege of being in your community like so many other companies have. And so we need to make sure there's more transparency, accountability before they come.
Thank you, Dr. Peck. Mr. Rourke?
Yeah. So essentially, there must be value proposition in terms of tax revenues for that local community who's willing to accept a data center into their community. For example, how much revenue is they going to get, right? How long is that data center going to be there? 5 years, 10 years? After a 10-year time period, is there going to be maintenance agreements? Is that data center going to be removed, right? Who's going to kind of own that piece of property? Who's going to manage it and maintain it? Those are a lot of the things we need to make sure that are in place before folks break ground on those data centers. Also, it's transparency, right? Who's doing it, right? Facebook, Google, John Doe Company 1, John Doe Company 2. We have no idea, right? That we need to have transparency there going forward. And then also from a federal perspective, we have the EPA managing water, utility, and then the Department of Energy looking at the draw in utility prices and cost. There's something there from the Department of Energy that could be used to start to clamp down on these data centers that are kind of just developing, in a reckless manner. But our communities need to step up and kind of, hold these data centers accountable. I know there's a few moratoriums that have been put in place in certain counties, or at least a 1 year or 2 year in some places. We need to continue to do that before we understand what that development is and what is the long-term cost going forward. And so I'm an advocate of all those regulations and policies before development occurs.
Thank you all for your responses. Here's the last question before we move to the speed round. So we're gonna get right into it. Mr. Rourke, you're gonna be first up on the response. Question is about transparency and accountability. That is, we are seeing lots of issues, if you will, within the federal government on transparency and accountability. How will you ensure transparency and accountability in your role if elected to Congress? Mr. Rourke, you're up first.
So in terms of my view of the executive branch or my view of the judicial branch, or both? We're
going to go with both, because it is also a power of Congress to hold the executive branch accountable. So we'll say yours and your job within Congress.
Okay. Now, obviously, within Congress, we have our own issue. I mean, Congress has their own problems. The Ethics Committee, they're dealing with that. But from a transparency and accountability perspective, you need to hold folks. You need to have committee assignments. Obviously, I would be allotted to the Veterans Committee or maybe the STEM Committee. We hold hearings, and folks are called to testify, and they have to testify under oath about certain facts, whether they're a undersecretary of Energy, Defense. My goal would be to communicate with that individual and making sure that I'm getting the answers I need in terms of issues and funding. And if they're not being cooperative, subpoena that individual with committee-wide vote and make sure they come to Congress and testify. It looks really bad if you ask them to come testify, you subpoena them to testify. They don't show up. That's contempt of Congress. 2, Bottom line is, I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth is a terrible look. And so it's a heck of a way to hold folks accountable and to maintain transparency in Congress. And I think that's a vital tool that we don't use enough of in Congress. Seems like they're doing it because, it needs to be better. But going forward, I would continue to advocate for that approach because that's a way of the congressional Congress getting the answer that it needs from the judicial branch and the executive branch.
Thank you, Mr. Rourke. Mr. Meyer, you're up next.
The first thing that we need to do is make sure that there's accountability for abuses and corruption, and that is not being done, and Congress has done frankly, a suck-egg job of their responsibilities. And then they've got their own problems with ethic requirements. Obviously, we should not be allowing people to trade basically insider information by having them trade individual stocks. And we also need to really stand up to address things that have been happening in the last year. They've removed and replaced multiple inspectors generals, they being the government in this administration. They've increased the use of non-Senate confirming active agency leaders, resistance to subpoenas and testimony. They've reduced transparency in the White House visitor logs, weakened enforcement at the Federal Election Commission. They've relaxed ethics waivers and on and on and on. And it just compounds all of the general distrust that people have in the government right now. And the big reason that people don't trust the government is because the government isn't working for them. It's not just that they're not accountable. It's that what they're doing is not in the best interest of the people. We need to, if we really want the trust and respect of the American people back, we need to fix the rigged economic system so we can make a positive impact on people's life. We need to make systemic changes that forces improvement. We need a healthcare amendment. We need a balanced budget amendment. We need election funding reform. And my time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. And I appreciate you always recognizing when your time is up. Dr. Peck, you are up for this question.
So we need to take back our power of checks and balances at this point, make sure that we make sure that the Supreme Court is not taking gifts and are being transparent about that. And we need to take back our war powers and our powers of the purse. But we need to take care of our own house and clean out our own house. And so I've pledged publicly, along with 70 other Democratic challenging candidates that you could see on something called Take Back Accountability in Congress, to not take any corporate PAC money. I've also pledged on that is to have at least a 5-year moratorium on lobbying, to have term limits. For me, I have said 4 term limits, 4 terms is what we want. And then no inside stock, individual stock trading. And so I'm saying right now, no corporate PAC money. I will not take any. And I haven't heard that from my colleagues here. I literally don't know if that's something that they're willing to do or not. So I'll open that up.
Thank you, Dr. Peck. To be fair, are you getting rid of the rest of your time to answer that question to ask that of the other 2 candidates?
If they'd like to rebut, they can, sure.
Okay. At this time, would either Mr. Rourke or Mr. Meyer? Okay, Mr. Meyer, I see you ready to answer. You can give 30 seconds.
Okay. So I would be in favor of, once I'm in Congress, of putting a law in place that changes campaign finance reform. But the fact is that right now, in order to win this election, we're going to need $3 million or more. Unilaterally disarming is not going to get us where we need to go. I think it's a good idea. I think that we need to do it in a legislative way. And I would be in favor of that. But If we shut off our opportunity for money, we're just going to lose. I wish it wasn't that way.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Mr. Rourke, 30 seconds.
Okay, well, first step is I'm not getting any current PAC money right now. Nobody's even contacted me to provide PAC money, so let's be clear there. But I kind of agree that you need money to run the campaign. If there's certain PACs that support term limits, if there's certain PACs that support income inequality, if there's certain PACs that look at high wage job growth, right, the middle class, supporting those pro-union PACs, we need, as Democrats, we need to look at those opportunities and not shut the door, but we need to look at them going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, well, you made it through the big questions. Congratulations to the three of you. We're now going to move forward in with our lightning round, if you will. I will now ask a series of questions. Just a friendly reminder, if you are not actively speaking, please remember to mute your microphone. So we will move into the lightning round. I will now ask a series of questions, yes or no answers only, highlighting areas of disagreement within the Democrat coalition. And then this will be the final round for this debate, and then we will move into closing statements. So I have 15 questions. I'm going to be cognizant of our time here, so we might not get through all 15, but just be ready to be quick and with those mute buttons and quick with your answers. As a heads up, Mr. Meyer, you're going to be first. So first question is going to be Meyer, then Dr. Peck, then Rourke. So here we go. Question number 1. Do you support a federal moratorium on new data center construction?
No.
No.
No, I can't hear you.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rourke. Did you answer that? Is that a no for you?
Yeah, no. That's
Okay.
a no.
Okay. Mr. Rourke, you're going to be up first on this next question. Do you support expanding the Supreme Court beyond 9 justices?
No.
Dr. Peck?
No.
Mr. Meyer?
No.
Okay. Third question. Do you support statehood for DC and Puerto Rico? Dr. Peck?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Puerto Rico, yes.
And Mr. Rourke?
Yeah, DC, yes. Actually, both, yes.
Okay. And then you guys can go ahead and just leave yourselves unmuted since we're doing a lightning round. We can handle the reverb. Okay, so question 4. Do you support constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College? Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Rourke?
I'm not sure. I'm going to say no at this time.
Okay. Dr. Peck?
Yes.
Do you support federal legalization of recreational cannabis or recreational marijuana? Mr. Meyer?
Absolutely.
Mr. Rourke?
No, because it's there's still a lot of unknowns yet.
Okay. Dr. Peck?
Yes.
Congress is currently debating reauthorization of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Do you support it, Mr. Rourke?
With the abuses right now, as it's written, no.
Mr. Meyer?
No reauthorization.
Dr. Peck?
No.
Do you support withholding military aid to Israel? Dr. Peck?
Yes.
Mr. Rourke?
I'm going to say no in certain circumstances.
Mr. Meyer,
Partially.
do you support impeaching President Trump? Mr. Meyer,
For the Iran war, definitely.
Mr. Rourke,
I would say the biggest glaring issue is yes for pocket rescissions and the Impoundment Act violations.
and Dr. Peck.
It depends on which article, but yes.
Do you support free public higher education? Mr. Rourke,
No.
Dr. Peck.
Can you ask the question again? I'm sorry, I broke up for one moment.
I apologize. Do you support free public higher education?
Pathway to get there.
Okay. Mr. Meyer,
For the first year, yes.
Yeah. Can we expand? Are we allowed to expand a little on the public education?
do you, I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll give you each 30 seconds.
Yeah. I'm just saying, I think a pathway is necessary. No free education, but if it's merit based, based off critical in-demand fields, skilled trades, medical, those type of areas, yes, but it has to be some kind of payback opportunity that I would advocate for, but not absolutely free, but has to be merit based.
Okay. Mr. Meyer, I'll give you 30 seconds.
When I was going to school, the Greatest Generation invested in education for the young, which I was at the time, like they did in roads and bridges and water treatment plants. Since 1970, the real cost of education has gone up by a factor of 10 in today's dollars. This is why we have debt. This is why it is so hard, and it's intentional. We need to fix this education problem, not just tinker around the edges.
Thank you. Dr. Peck,
For me, it's a way of overcoming the bureaucracy of America when we have national security concerns, economic changes, how fast AI is moving, because we need to move our workforce to respond to these things very quickly, more quickly than ever before, and removing every education barrier we can to getting those education is important.
Well, all three of you danced around this next question. Do you support cancellation of all outstanding student debt? Since we're moving on from public higher education, Dr. Peck, what are your thoughts on canceling the student debt?
Not all of it, no.
Not all of it. Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
And Mr. Rourke?
No, I truly believe it's got to be merit-based, specifically for teachers and doctors, as long as they serve their 5 or 10 years and they have
Okay. Do you support federally funded childcare? Mr. Meyer?
I would like to say yes. I haven't figured out how to fund it.
Okay. Mr. Rourke?
I support yes, but it has to have a cap on it, expenses.
Okay. Dr. Peck?
Tax incentives for businesses, small businesses particularly.
Okay. Is Hakeem Jeffries your candidate for speaker? Dr. Peck?
No.
Mr. Rourke?
I would say no at this time.
Mr. Meyer?
No.
Do you support a federal assault weapons ban? Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Peck?
Yes.
Mr. Rourke?
Not necessarily. Depends on the weapon.
Okay. Do you support abolishing the federal death penalty? Mr. Meyer?
I struggle, but no.
Okay. Mr. Rourke?
I struggle. No, that there's capital punishment situations where that you have to have it.
Okay. Dr. Peck?
Abolish it.
Okay. By 2030, the federal minimum wage should be what? Mr. Rourke?
by 2030. Ooh, just doing cost of living increases, probably $22, $23 an hour by 2030, maybe.
Okay, Dr. Peck.
I'll go with low 20s.
Mr. Meyer.
It should be 20 like nowish and then adjust as needed.
Okay. Well, if you all three don't mind going back to muting for me. We have successfully completed the lightning round. So we will now move on to closing statements. Each of you, each candidate will now have up to 2 minutes to provide a closing statement summarizing their key messages and why they are the best choice for Indiana's 9th Congressional District. We started with, I'm going to go with Mr. Rourke. You are going to go first in closing statements.
Yeah, so I get 2 minutes, is that right?
Yes, sir. You get 2 minutes.
Okay, all right, just to make sure. I've been known to talk a lot, so. Yeah, thank you very much for this afternoon. Great opportunity to talk about the issues. Once again, my name is Kyle Rourke. I'm a former UAW worker and Navy officer, and I'm pro-worker, pro-union, and I'm deeply worried about our folks here in the 9th Congressional. I want them to have plenty of jobs, but I really want them to have good paying jobs. My goal is to put more money in their pockets. It's that simple. Whether we institute ACA subsidies, increase minimum wage, educational access to improve those high income jobs, that's my goal. Obviously, we want to hold the government accountable, provide a check and balance, and have good ethics reform. I am that person. I am the person who can relate. I can relate and connect with those blue collar folk, working folk every day because I was one. I have that ability to appeal to those middle of the road and disenfranchised Republicans. And I'm sorry, my colleagues are a little bit progressive, and I think they're really going to struggle in the general. Good people, but I think they're really going to struggle in some of those policies they're advocating for. And so I think I'm the only candidate that can actually win over those red districts that are really looking for a change. And I'm the safe bet. In the past 6 to 7 elections, we've basically out of the primary, we've elected a progressive candidate, and they go on to the general and they just lose. And my good friend Tim, he ran last time, he got beat by 55,000 votes, and we're going to see the same thing happen again this time around, and that's unfortunate. Good person, him and Brad, but I'm here to win the ticket in November, and I truly believe I'm that candidate to do that job, and because my message is all about the economy, it's all about jobs, and it's all about putting more money in people's pockets. Thank you for your time, and have a great day. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Rourke. Mr. Meyer.
So my opponent in the last debate, and here again, has said that I'm a dreamer. I'm not. I'm progressive. For over a century, progressives have fought to move this country forward. We fought for Social Security and Medicare, civil rights and women's rights, and the right to choose. None of those victories came from playing it safe. We can't put a safe candidate out. It came from people with the courage to dream and the discipline to make it real. Every American deserves a fair shot at a decent life. That's why I'm a progressive, and that's why I'm running. My wife and I worked our way through school together and spent years struggling to build a life together. We worked for everything we have, and I'm proud of what we did together. But I'm not sure we could have done it if we're starting today. The ladder we climbed has been pulled up behind us. Young adults and working families are facing systems that aren't just broken, they're rigged. History tells us it's not the first time the wealthy and the powerful have rigged the system and tried to take away our rights. History teaches us you don't fix a crisis by tiptoeing around it. You lead through it. History shows us that when we have the courage to fight for our rights, our values, and our priorities, the people will vote for us. This is how we're going to win in November. I'm Brad Meyer, and I'm asking for your vote on November 5th. Because the meek may inherit the earth, but they're never going to take back the house.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Dr. Peck.
I've been doing this work for 3 years, as Kyle said, and something's changed out there. You can feel it. It's palpable. People are showing up across the district. The No Kings rallies are being, 700 people in court in town of 3,000, 2,000 in Jeffersonville, thousands in Bloomington. And it's not just the Democrats. And there's nothing safe about doing hard work. And the hard work has been to go to where Republicans are over this last year or two. And I hear it at the doors from Republicans. Costs too much to work in this country. People are frustrated. They're mad at Trump for the distractions that he's created toward their welfare, and they're disappointed. And it's the first time I've really heard that. And we're in this moment in history where you don't just need a candidate you can trust, you need a candidate that can win, that has done the work and built a machine. So I've been building this momentum, knocked on thousands of doors. We are today knocking in Bloomington, Salisbury, Madison, Charlestown, and Lanesville as we speak, while I speak to you. Built a media company to reach people within Indiana 9, well beyond rooms like this one, and similar to what you all have built too. I've gone to heated council meetings where being a Republican or Democrat, county council meetings where being a Republican or Democrat really leaves the room, and it's about, are you a good neighbor or not? Basketball gyms, county fairs, coffee shops, and I've stayed in these hard rooms when it's mattered. And I just am asking you to join me. I'm been so honored about all of the hundreds of volunteers that have. We have a phone banking on Monday night. We're going to be door knocking all week. We have a postcard program. Please take a stack and go to our website where you can sign up to do that. If not now, when? Today is the day. And I hope that you can vote for and then get on board with a campaign that's organized and can take back Indiana 9. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peck. Thank you to all of our candidates for being part of this afternoon's conversation. Running for office is not easy. It is an act of vulnerability that takes real courage, and that deserves recognition regardless of where voters will ultimately land. On behalf of everyone here today, I want to thank our 3 candidates for their time, their candor, and their willingness to engage seriously in the hard questions. Voters in this district deserve answers. I also want to thank Progressive Indiana Network for organizing this afternoon's event and for their ongoing commitment to making sure Hoosier voters have the information they need to make informed decisions. Early voting is underway, and Indiana's primary election day is May 5th. Whoever wins that primary will carry the Democratic banner into one of the most consequential midterm elections in modern American history. Your vote in the primary is not a formality. It's a choice about what kind of Democrat this district will send to Washington. Let's make it count. This concludes the 2026 Progressive Indiana Network Primary Debate Series. On behalf of the entire Progressive Indiana Network team, I am Casey Blundell. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Casey.
Thanks.